The following podcast is intended only for listeners who are intent on growing the business. Welcome to Innovate Marketing, where we are bringing you interviews with the brands, the influencers, and the nonprofits that are making waves and growing business. We are brought to you by mypodcast.media. MyPodcast.media produces high-quality podcasts that authentically connect you to your ideal audience. And now, I'd like to introduce you to your host for Innovate Marketing, Sherry Peak.
Welcome to Innovate Marketing Podcast. Today, our guest is Buyer Psychology Strategist, founder of Consulting Out Loud, Rahila Ismail. Welcome to the show today, Rahila.
Thank you, Sherry. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I'm excited to get into our conversation. So, simply put, I read that you said you answer the burning question, how to get people to buy. My question is, how can you ethically persuade people to buy?
Yeah, great question, Sherry. So before I answer that question, I just want to give a little perspective. My background is in psychology and neuroscience. And for over 20 years, I've been running my own consulting practice, global practice, multimillion dollars, working with over 100 of the Fortune 500 companies. And intuitively, although my field the work I was doing wasn't directly in psychology and neuroscience, it was the underlying theme. But intuitively, I was using principles from psychology, from consumer economics, from social cognitive neuroscience in the way I was positioning my offers, the way I was marketing my business, the way I was actually even selling my services. And I realized that, people were struggling and they would come to me like, Rahila, how's business going? And I'd be, it's going great, better than ever. And they would be scratching their heads wondering like, that's weird. Maybe she's lying, but I wasn't lying. Really, it was going fabulous. And I sat down and I thought about it. Like, what am I doing something different? They're not doing the things I'm doing? What's going on here? So I sat down and I realized that I was using these principles in all my marketing, in all my selling situations and scenarios. And when I looked at what other people were doing, for example, we've all heard this tagline, you're one funnel away from your next million. And I'm like, yeah, right. The 10-second pitch that's going to have investors wanting to kidnap you and lock you up and hold you hostage until you promise to take all their money. Yeah, right. 10 seconds, in 10 seconds, or that magical email script. And when I looked at them closely, some of the things that they were saying made sense to me from a psychology perspective, the way the brain processes information, but a lot of it was totally off the mark. And these were just tactics and schemes, and they just don't work. They might work in some instances, but majority of the time, they just don't work. And then I thought about it. Okay, so what am I doing? I am actually using the psychology of persuasion in my sales and marketing. And so when you ask that question, what is ethical, right? Ethical is when you have something of real value to offer. Like Sherry, if you had the cure to cancer, or the cure to AIDS, and you keep it hidden and keep it all to yourself, you don't let it out and let it serve people it can actually help, then that is unethical. And so when we talk about ethical selling, ethical persuasion, the first criteria is you must have something of value to offer. And once you have that, and you combine it with the way the brain actually makes the buying decision, you understand all the triggers, the buttons to push to get to the yes. When those two come together, that equals ethical persuasion.
Interesting. Very interesting. So let's talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. Why is emotional intelligence so important in the world of marketing and sales?
Great question. In fact, I was having a session today with a group of mentorees, right? I'm a mentor to a group of people. And this was an interesting question because one of the participants, they were trying to pitch an offer or compose their offer. And where they were off the mark is they did not understand their buyers' emotional hot buttons. So my background is also in emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? One of the core elements is social awareness. It's being aware of the people you are interacting with. What are the triggers that will bring them closer to you, emotionally engage them with you? And what are also the triggers that are going to emotionally disengage them from you? So emotional intelligence is like it's a core skill that every marketer, every salesperson, I'm even going to say every business owner, every founder, every leader needs to have.
It's so important, and I would absolutely agree with you because it could make a world of a difference in a sale or perhaps not a sale. So let's talk a little about how, or can you explain how the stimulus, like the words, the imagery, the phrasing, the hooks, is important to persuasion in sales and marketing as well?
Yeah, it's all about the stimuli. There's multiple stimuluses, right? Stimuli. And interestingly, a lot of marketers and salespeople, they are doing bits and pieces, but they're not pushing all those trigger points. They're not using all the potential stimuli that they should be to get to the fastest, smoothest yes. And what you need to do is not only make sure you have the right buttons identified, but you actually push them in the right sequence. And what that sequence is how the human brain actually processes information. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, Sherry, your brain is obviously very complex, but there are 3 major networks of neurons or systems that process incoming information with different priorities. So do you know how the brain gets information? How does information input into the brain? Do you know?
Tell me.
Okay, the 5 senses.
Okay,
right?
5
So
senses.
through the eyes, through the ears, right? Through your smell, your touch, your taste. So the 5 senses. So, and in marketing and sales, the sense that we're stimulating are the ears and the eyes. So we're using words, language, and imagery. But the brain does not pay equal attention to every single word and every single image at the same time. So there are 3 kind of like gates of the brain that you have to go through with your words and imagery. The first and most critical gate is of the primal brain. And the primal brain network is basically right at the base of your skull, right where your neck and your skull come together. Scientifically, or if you use medical terminology, it's like your cerebellum, right? And this is it's called primal, not because it's primitive. It's a highly complex network of neurons. It actually manages your body temperature, your breathing, your circulation, your digestion, all your basic survival mechanisms. And the key word is survival. So the key for marketers and salespeople is we need to be able to grab the attention of the primal brain. Because if we don't grab attention, then our message is not going to go deeper into the other regions of the brain, which are the emotional brain, and then after that, the logical brain. So first, you need to grab the attention of the primal brain with the right imagery and the right words. Once you've opened the lock and you've entered your buyer's brain, now you want to stimulate desire for your offer, what you're selling. And again, with the right imagery and the right words. we've all heard the saying that we buy based on emotion. We justify our purchase or the buying decision based on logic. So once we've stimulated and triggered desire in our buyer's emotional brain, now the message is ready to go to the logical brain for justification. So there you have to give another set of imagery and words to satisfy the logical brain. So primal, emotional, logical. And each brain has its own language and has its own stimuli, which types of imagery, pictures, which types of words it's actually going to process and pay attention to.
Wow, this is such powerful information. I never thought about that aspect of it. So very, very interesting. So how have you seen B2B buying behaviors change in the last year?
That's a really good question. Last year is like our first post-pandemic official year, right? In terms of B2B buyers, I don't see much of a change except in one area. Now, before B2B buyers would be very in terms of hands-on, physical interaction, physical connections. Now they are like other consumers, B2B buyers. They're like other consumers. And they're very online. They're researching. They're finding out information. They're looking you up. They're looking for solutions. And so I read a very interesting research report. This was published by the RAIN Group a couple of years back. And they asked this question of B2B buyers, like, what is the number one factor behind your decision to hire a service provider as a buyer, right? As a B2B buyer. And what is the number one factor that you reject a service provider? Can you guess what the number one factor was? Out of 42 items, they had to rank them. So can you guess what the number one factor for hiring a service provider was? B2B?
Experience?
Experience? No.
Sales? Customer?
No. This is what we think, right? This is exactly what you're saying, is what we think. But interestingly, the research that I read, and it's available online as well, you can look it up, the RAIN Group, what makes a good salesperson. The interesting thing, the number one factor was these B2B buyers said, the service provider helped me to look at my situation, my problem, with new insights. They gave me insights, and that caught me right away because insights happen in the brain. And there are certain things you have to say in a certain order in order to trigger an insight in someone's brain. So that was like, oh my God, number one reason, they made me look at things differently, right? See my situation differently. And interestingly, Sherry, the opposite end, what was the number one reason they rejected service providers, these B2B buyers? They were doing the same thing like everyone else. There was nothing new. There was no innovation. There was nothing different. It was like I was, whatever I asked, they gave me that. They were like order fulfillers and not really helping me see my situation in a new way.
I love that because that really speaks to the creative side of people, and them having that space to be creative in the problem solving. And so I like that. And that would be a reason that I would choose too. So going into 2023, how do brands and B2B services need to look at web and search engine optimization?
SEO, oh my God, it's so important. It's so important. It's part of the stimuli, the words, right? When we go onto Google, as if I'm ready to buy something, I have a problem. I don't even know if there's a solution out there. But what do? We all go to Google and we type in our problem, right? What is, it's like we're asking this oracle, the great Google, to solve our problems for us. Now, as a business owner, if you don't understand SEO, search engine optimization, and you don't understand your buyer's brain, like when they're looking at their situation, what are the words coming in their mind that they will be entering into the search bar? If you don't understand how they're thinking, then you won't be able to show up in their search results on Google. So you have to understand how they look at their problem, what at a 5th grade level they would be typing into Google search to find a potential solution to their problem. And does your website, does your LinkedIn profile, do your social media profiles contain those keywords in enough quantity for you to actually show up in those search results on Google for that potential buyer? So it is absolutely critical for us to really understand first our buyer's brain, what they're thinking, what they're looking for at that point where they want to be finding a solution and making a purchase, and then matching our online social presence, our web presence to match the thought process in our buyer's brain.
So let's talk a little bit about your 30 days of persuasion. Can you tell us what that is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I found is, because when I was looking at the market, I've using these strategies and cheat codes from Buyer Psychology in my own business. And when I surveyed the market, I found that, there's no one really purely talking about this in terms of marketing and sales, and even business strategy development, offer creation, perception management. No one's even talking about buyer psychology, where it's like we're working all in a vacuum, right? And making based on assumptions, flavors of the month. When in our hands, we already have decades of psychological research, neuroscience research, brain studies. We have studies from fMRI research studies where we can actually see the brain lighting up when it has an insight, when it makes a decision, when it's motivated and happy, when it's upset and wants to fight or flight, get away from a situation. We have all this data and research, but we don't have any practical step-by-step application or tools or templates or scripts that incorporate that research in a practical way. So what I decided to do was to kind of throw this out there in the market with a 30-day audio series called The 30 Days of Persuasion, where every day I'm sharing these cheat codes to the buyer's brain, and sharing a little tool, a little template, a little script. And people are, Sherry, they're just like lapping it up, and they're like, oh my God, where was this before? They're like, we wish we had known this stuff before, because it's science-backed. It's research-backed. It's all built on the fundamentals of human behavior and psychology, not the whim of your favorite guru of the month, right? And so that's what this 30 days is all about. It's a LinkedIn audio series that I'm doing daily, consistently for 30 days. And today was day 23. And believe me, Sherry, I've never done anything this consistently other than maybe take care of my kids, right? But you have to do that. If you don't, you're a bad parent. So I had to do that. But this is the first time I've been so consistent.
Well, congratulations to you. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity. So yes, I'm going to have to find you on LinkedIn and take a look at that. That sounds awesome. So what are you doing on Clubhouse these days?
Interestingly, I'm broadcasting simultaneously. So on Clubhouse, I have a club for my company, Consulting Out Loud. And just in the last month, it's like doubled in terms of people who've joined that club, because I think what I'm saying really speaks to a lot of people. So in this 30-day audio series, I decided to really now promote my club on Clubhouse, and I'm broadcasting simultaneously, both audio LinkedIn and audio Clubhouse. Now, LinkedIn, one of the negative points I find so far is LinkedIn does not allow for replays. There's no way for us to store the recording for our own retrieval. LinkedIn keeps a recording, but we don't get it as creators. So simultaneously on Clubhouse, I get to store the replay there. So inside the club, people, if they missed a session, they were busy, they were in a meeting, they were picking up kids or whatever, they can go back and listen into the replay on the Clubhouse app. And so I'm using it in this kind of manner simultaneously.
Okay, that sounds really good. Now, you also created the Buying Brain Playbook.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and let's let people know how they could find your book or any other information like this that they might want to buy in the future.
Absolutely. This Buying Brain Playbook are the 21 stimuli that trigger your buyer's brain's journey, not the buyer's journey, your buyer's brain's journey to the sales decision. And so these 21 stimuli are structured according to the primal brain. There's 5 that you need to push, the buttons you need to push for the primal brain. There's 6 more for the emotional brain. There's more for the logical brain. And so it's structured across the buyer's brain's journey. And it's not available as a book, but what I am doing is next month in December, I'm launching a 4-week kind of group coaching program where I'm releasing the Buying Brain, right? This playbook, and walking people through the journey along with the tools, the templates, and the scripts for each of those 21 stimuli. So that is available, will be available in December. But if someone really wants to get started applying buyer psychology, I have a free resource they can download. It's called the LinkedIn Captivating Headline Guide. And there are 4 formulas that I've put together using buyer psychology: how to grab the attention of the primal brain, how to create desire in the emotional brain, and how to justify the need of the logical brain for evidence and credibility. So these formulas capture the language of all 3 regions of your buyer's brain. And if you use any one of those 4 formulas and you update your headline with this revised formula and take a screenshot of your LinkedIn stats before you change your headline, first get the numbers, like how many profile views, how many search results you've had with your old headline, update your headline, and after 30 days, 4 weeks, check your stats again. I can guarantee my people I've helped with the headlines with using these formulas, minimum 2x to up to 10x increase in your profile views and increase in your search results. LinkedIn is a search engine as well. So increase in your search results. So I'd be happy to share that with the listeners as well.
Oh, that's great. So thank you for offering that. So as we round out our time today, couple more things. One, what would be your final thoughts you would leave with our listening audience today?
Well, we as business owners, maybe you're an expert, you sell your expertise as a consultant, maybe as a coach, maybe as a B2B service provider. And no doubt you are really good in your area of expertise. No doubt, no question about it. However, you also need to be good in selling. And unfortunately, a lot of us hesitate to sell. We don't feel comfortable. We feel like it's pushy, it's aggressive, it's sleazy, it's slimy, with that, that used car salesman metaphor that we all visualize. No, it doesn't have to be that way. It can be very easy. You can nail the sale and you can seal the deal if you only understand and apply buyer psychology. So those were my parting words.
Okay. Can you tell our listeners, Rahila, how can they connect with you beyond our time together here today?
Absolutely. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Rahila Ismail. You can look me up and connect with me there. You can also find me online, consultingoutloud.com. You're welcome to join my monthly, I call it a co-working session. It's the first Monday of every month. It's free. We get on a Zoom and we tackle your marketing and sales dilemmas and challenges using buyer psychology. And you can also download my LinkedIn headline guide, consultingoutloud.com/captivate. Right? So I'm sure you can share those links as well.
Rahila, thank you for joining us today. Truly, this conversation and time spent with you has been very insightful for me, and I'm sure to many of our listeners today. Again, thank you, listeners, for joining us today. And until we talk again, be great and stay safe.
That brings us to the close of this edition of Innovate Marketing. We're glad you tuned in. Innovate Marketing is brought to you by mypodcast.media. Mypodcast.media produces podcasts for brands, influencers, and nonprofits. Find us online at mypodcast.media. Your producer for Innovate Marketing is Beth Freed. Executive producer, Sean Neal. And your host is Sherry Peak. We'll see you next time. Be sure to tune in.